Things are so bad for Donald Trump at the moment that well-known Trump sympathizer and BFF, Piers Morgan, has publicly acknowledged that Vice President Kamala Harris utterly annihilated Trump in their debate last night, and even dedicated an entire episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored to that topic, and the panel got spicy, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. This might be my favorite Piers Morgan episode to talk about because it's like one of two times in the entirety of Piers Morgan's U.S. politics catalog where he has been particularly critical of Trump and particularly praiseworthy towards the vice president. I mean, it's just staggering. It actually began with a public acknowledgement on Twitter from Piers of the vice president's victory. He says, wow, Kamala Harris won that debate comfortably. Trump was unusually flat and very repetitive. Harris was nervous to start, but grew increasingly confident. He didn't seem to know how to handle her. Big win for Kamala. Wasn't expecting that. Could be an election game changer. And indeed, that is what many of us are hoping for. So with that in mind, we have several clips to talk about it. And it's going to get a little petty. Some of these clips are pretty short because some of them are just of Piers Morgan acknowledging that Trump lost or was baited or humiliated or outfoxed. And I like that.
Harris laid out a series of glaring traps for the former president, and like a cartoon mouse distracted by the cheese, he became ensnared by all of them. She snared him with rage bait about his rallies, and it worked.
Again, petty stuff, but I just love Piers Morgan, who presents himself as a nonpartisan journalist with no particular bias, acknowledging that Donald Trump had an unambiguous, unmitigated failure, and a Democrat, be it President Biden, Vice President Harris, or somebody, but a Democrat somewhere in some place had a decisive victory against Trump. It's so sad that brings me such joy in many ways, but that just goes to show how low Piers has set the bar, just a basic acknowledgement of facts. Well, he had Cenk Uygur on the panel, Cenk Uygur, progressive commentator from the Young Turks, and Piers, I guess, tried to use this as an opportunity to debunk the idea, the fact, really, that he is biased in favor of Trump. He's like, hey, listen, once in 1,000 years, I occasionally criticize Trump, and this happens to be such an occasion. So clearly I'm not biased towards him, which led to a really fun back and forth between Piers and Cenk.
With you, Cenk, because you've repeatedly called me a Trump sympathizer, a Trump whisperer, a Trump supporter, all these ridiculous things. I'm very happy, as I tweeted earlier, to say to you that I think Kamala Harris not only won the debate last night, she won it quite comfortably. And I was very surprised by that. I thought she began nervously, but grew in confidence. Trump started confidently and then pretty much lost the plot and responded to a lot of her deliberate goading in entirely the way she would have hoped. So I think it was a big win for Kamala Harris. It may not move the needle in the immediate aftermath in terms of the election, but in terms of momentum and in terms of what happened to the Democrats after the last debate, you got to say it was a good night.
Before Cenk answers, again, just let's take a minute and just bask in that moment from Piers Morgan, again, who is a major content creator. He is a major voice in political and media commentary. So what he says matters. And again, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, Piers, number one, knows how to create good content. Number two, he knows how to pull in really entertaining configurations of panels. My frustration is that he doesn't really play the devil's advocate for the most part against Republicans and Trump supporters. He tends to grade them on a curve. And this is just a rare exception where even though it's two conservatives versus two anti-conservatives, because I would say Brian is a liberal, much like myself, Brian Tyler Cohen, and Cenk is progressive, or depending on where they fall in the political spectrum, I suppose. But it's 2v2, I suppose, and the entire premise is anti-Trump, and I love that. So now let's get to Cenk's response.
Yeah, Piers, look, in your intro, you're fair and you're right. Kamala Harris definitely won, and Donald Trump clowned himself. But you're kind of rooting for Trump, and you could tell that you were disappointed in how it went. So I get it. You guys are friends. It's okay.
I'm actually, you've always miscategorized. Just to be clear, I'm not disappointed. I genuinely thought he was going to win. They're different things. And he didn't win. And that's a problem for Trump and a good night for Kamala Harris. And so they're different things. You know, I don't have a horse in the race. I can't vote for anybody. I do know Trump way better than I know Kamala Harris, but I'm always trying to be fair. I've told you this before, and I think I'm being fair now when I absolutely say Kamala won.
Yeah, I hear you. Look, it's your bias, whether it's slight or significant, is irrelevant. Don't sweat it, okay?
I'm not biased.
You know what? You know what, Piers? I pardon you. Okay.
So Piers Morgan is obviously biased. His claim that, I can't possibly have a bias, even though I've known Trump for years and I've called him a friend, and even though I evidently grade him on a curve based on my body of content, because I'm not an American citizen and therefore I can't vote, is patently absurd. That is a red herring. It has nothing to do with the idea. You can have biases for people. I mean, my God, you can be a 17-year-old American citizen who is ineligible to vote by definition due to your age and still have a pro-Trump bias. You can be a convicted felon and therefore have your voting rights taken from you and still have a particular political bias. So your bias is not dependent on whether or not you have the ability to vote. Absolutely ridiculous stuff. So another clip from this panel.
The thing is, Tommy, that should have been a home run for Trump, right? This is absolutely his wheelhouse. She was the border czar. She's dropped the ball massively. That's all he had to say. But going down this ridiculous conspiracy rabbit hole of migrants eating everyone's pets, which had already been discredited, certainly there's no actual evidence to prove it at the moment. It just seemed, as Cenk says, he sounded a bit nuts, and he lost the momentum of what should have been a home run.
I don't disagree that he missed a huge opportunity to hold her to account on the border invasion that happened on her watch. She didn't answer why she let 10 million plus in. That was a question she was asked that she dodged, because the low-hanging fruit is to talk about the bipartisan border bill. But I don't disagree with you. Trump had an opportunity to hold her feet to the fire, and he didn't do it. Now, I will also say this. If Donald Trump wanted to talk about Springfield, Ohio, or Aurora, Colorado, or other communities that are being devastated by mass immigration of foreign nationals, he could have taken that opportunity, because it's a very real thing that's happening. Sanctuary cities are going broke and bankrupt, taking care of millions of people that have been thrown into their communities that refuse to assimilate. He could have discussed it in that way, because these communities are being devastated, and you have people at city council meetings that are quite frankly talking about it. But he chose to go a different route. I wish he had not done that. I wish he would have taken the bait. There's no doubt he took the bait, he took the hook, he took the line, he took the sinker, he took the entire frickin' boat. And I am frustrated by that. And I am intellectually honest enough to say it. I wish he had not done that. He missed several opportunities last night, but that does not change the fact.
So again, that's Tomi Lahren, Fox News host, MAGA Republican, strident Trump supporter, admitting that Trump tanked it. Of course, she's ranting about mass immigration, undocumented immigration. As we've discussed, whether she wants it to admit it or not, the fact of the matter is that there was a conservative bipartisan border bill designed to address at least some of these issues. It was supported by prominent conservative Republicans like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham being a top Trump ally. And yet, because Donald Trump wanted to exploit it as a wedge issue during a campaign for cynical political reasons, he ordered his cult to kill the bill, despite the fact that it was endorsed by the anti-Biden, pro-Trump Border Patrol Union. So again, it was all bad faith. It was all cynical. And Donald Trump is therefore, consequently, morally culpable for everything that happens at the southern border. And it's up to us to make that case. Like, no, this is your fault now, 100%. And therefore, you should suffer the electoral consequences accordingly. Whether or not that will happen remains to be seen. But it is objectively all Trump's fault. Great to hear Tomi Lahren talk about Donald Trump's many, many failures. We also have Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's BFF. He's here, and he's trying to put much more of a pro-Trump spin on it. But just want to play a couple of clips of hearing Michael Knowles say in front of God and country that Donald Trump also made mistakes and screwed up.
I felt that Trump's closing statement was excellent. I agree with you, Piers. He should have given the closing statement probably as the introductory statement. I thought Trump did very well for the first 20 or 25 minutes. I thought that was a pretty clear victory. And then when Kamala, quite good at manipulating people, was able to get him to fall for the trap on the...
So let's put a pin on that for just a second. He says, listen, Donald Trump, he's so good. He started out really good, but Vice President Harris manipulated him. Well, Cenk Uygur pounces on this a little later, and I think it's worth bearing because Michael Knowles made a tacit concession about Trump's ability to be deceived or manipulated or outfoxed that he may not want to have publicly admitted.
So in this debate, Kamala Harris, the right wing is saying manipulated Donald Trump into being dumb and saying dumb things. Well, what does that tell you about Donald Trump? I mean, really, guys, you know it too if you're a right winger. He got manipulated that easily. He's such a spoiled little child. The minute you mention his toy, which is the rallies, he's like, no, my rallies are bigger than your rallies. Come on, you're running for president, brother. Be a little bit bigger than that. But he can't help himself. He's a tiny, weak man. That's why he...
Yes, that's the case. Again, even if we take your interpretation, Michael Knowles, at face value, all you've demonstrated is that Donald Trump... What's funny is, actually, it's really interesting because Michael Knowles and other Daily Wire contributors have gone on about how stupid the vice president is. They say she's stupid, she's airheaded, she's vapid. But you're also saying that she's a sufficiently skilled manipulator as to be able to deceive and outfox Donald Trump. Well, these two things are either mutually exclusive, or you are admitting that however smart or stupid the vice president is, Donald Trump, by definition, is much stupider still, right? This is the problem with MAGA Republicans, is they can't stick to a consistent principle or consistent narrative. It's like, again, Michael Knowles is smart. There's no question about it. Ben Shapiro's smart too. The problem is that trying to defend Donald Trump is like being the world's smartest flat earther. When the facts are so diametrically opposed to you, it doesn't matter how talented you are individually. At the end of the day, you will be inevitably defeated, because you may even defeat yourself. You may end up, creating a mess of your own making. And I just think that's funny to point out that, Harris is so stupid. But also, she really manipulated Donald Trump there. And that's not his fault. But would it be his fault? And it also implies that he's dumber than she is. Really funny stuff. Another clip.
I agree. I'm not saying it was the greatest performance ever. I think there were a number of missed opportunities from President Trump. I suspect his campaign advisors told him not to get aggressive. I thought it was crazy that he never called out the moderators. People always ought to attack the media in politics.
Do you know what I thought? You know what I thought, Michael? I just thought at the end that he was a bit boring, Trump. And the one thing he cannot be is boring. Because the point of Trump is he's so different to every other politician. He either makes you laugh, or he shocks you, or he's combative, or there's stuff always going on, which is compelling. I just didn't find Trump very compelling last night. I just felt that he was very repetitive, and he got caught in various traps that were laid for him way too easily. But ultimately, I just thought he wasn't very entertaining either. So on every level, he wasn't Trump-like.
Damn, Piers going for the gut punch, man. I mean, talking about how boring he is. Can you imagine Trump not only calling Trump a failure, saying that he failed, he lost, he's a loser, I suppose, but also saying he was boring in so doing? That has to hurt. I want to play, there's so many clips I can play. I actually had more lined up than this, but I'm skipping, I suppose, to the final few. We're going to start with this one here.
Attacking the moderators is so weak. First of all, there's no crying in politics. So when you cry about the moderators, you're just telling everybody we lost the debate. Thank you for admitting it. Second of all, now some right-wing media loons are talking about arresting the ABC moderators and shutting down ABC. Okay, do you know how pathetic and unhinged you sound when you make statements like that? First of all, what happened to free press? I thought you guys were in favor of free speech. All of a sudden, when your feelings get hurt, shut down the whole network, arrest it. What happened to cancel culture? Okay, so look.
Again, very important point to make, of course. Certainly MAGA Republicans, but I would argue most conservatives, very few, if any, people have a truly principled stance on quote unquote cancel culture, because the fact of the matter is we've always employed cancel culture. Social media has made it more ubiquitous, and it has made it more likely that, otherwise not powerful people can wield cancel culture. But we have always, as a social species, ostracized and socially punished those who do or express things that we prefer to avoid. We do it when we ghost people, when we break up with people, when we end friendships. Just even on an intimate social level, but also on a mass scale. Conservatives have employed cancel culture for years, both politically and in the entertainment industry. You have Joseph McCarthy, prominent Republican, architect of the Red share in the early 20th century. He was a primary architect of such cancel culture. That was cancel culture on steroids. During the Republican administration of President Bush, people who criticized the Bush administration were punished with cancel culture, including country music singers. So it's just something that's always been with us. When people are in power, they like to use that power to, effectively create the guardrails by which other people operate. And so it's no surprise that very upset, sensitive snowflake Trump supporters are in fact looking to use the powers of cancel culture to punish ABC. They're hypocrites and should be called out as such. One last clip. We're going to end with Tommy Lauren, back to MAGA Republicans, talking about Trump's various failures and what he should do differently next time.
Wait, hang on one second, right? Because Tommy has to go. Just quickly, Tommy, before you go, what advice would you give Trump? You've always been, I think, very, friendly, critical towards him. I think in an admirable way. When many just blindly go in the tank for him or blindly the other way. What advice do you give him to try and now retrieve what I think has been quite a damaging 24 hours for him?
Right. Well, I think that he needs to act very presidential, especially in these next couple of weeks. He needs to show the American people that he can, in fact, restrain himself. And sometimes that's not easy for him to do. I think we all know that. It can be his biggest attribute, but it also can make him his own worst enemy. I'm not going to make any bones about that. But I would also say my advice to Donald Trump would be this. No more rallies. You don't need to do rallies. Do smaller events, do town halls, do more interviews, do more podcasts. And Kamala Harris made one point last night that unfortunately I have to agree with. When he does these rallies, he goes off on tangents, he rambles. It's not helpful to him. He needs to be very concise. He needs to learn how to be brief and not ramble and hit the issue.
And she goes on actually like this for about another minute, and it's so good. Again, this whole episode's an hour and 16 minutes. You should watch every second of it because, again, this is a rare moment of Piers Morgan consistently, explicitly, not just once, not just for a few seconds, but for an entire sustained period, and made it even the topic of the panel, criticize Donald Trump. We finally found our once in a blue moon. It happened here. And so watch it and be sure to bask in the criticism coming from the right against Donald Trump. I imagine this hits him where it hurts. And in the meantime, you let me know what you think in the comments.